So in our previous session we were discussing about the question papers, right? That is, we were solving each question carrying 5 marks. Now let us continue the same part, that is questions carrying 5 marks. Among that we have prove that we are discussing about each question carrying 5 marks. Each question carrying 5 marks. Okay. Among that, what is the question next? We need to prove that this equivalence this equivalence where this relation equivalence is the set of natural numbers is countable. What we need to prove? We need to prove that this equivalence is countable. What this equivalence sign denote? It denotes the set of natural numbers. It generally means, or they can just say that to prove that n cross n is countable. Both means one and the same. This equivalence class is countable. We need to prove this. How we are going to prove? We are going to consider the set of numbers. Natural numbers we can consider anything, right? Just consider the set of numbers as a1, a2, a3 and just go on proving that. How we are going to prove? Consider the proof. That is, how we are going to solve is consider the sets a1. Consider the sets a1. How will be this set a1? Because it is a cross product, we write 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3 and so on. The same way a2 will be what? a2 will be 2, 1, 2, 2, 3 so on. And again a3 will be 3, 1, 3, 2, 3, 3 and so on, like that, continuing so on. Natural numbers we can go up to any number. To what number? an is equals to, how we are going to write that pair of numbers? That is nothing but n, 1, n, 2, n, 3 and so on, and these numbers still continue because it is the set of natural numbers. How we have considered? a1 will be 1, 1, 1, 2, 1, 3 and so on, and a2 will be 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3 and so on. The same way a3, a4, a5 so on, don't know how many numbers still, and then an is n, 1, n, 2, n, 3 and so on. Then what we are going to consider next? We are going to consider it as it is the union of numbers, right? That is what we are going to write clearly. N cross n, what it is? Union of these numbers, right? Union of an, where n belongs to this capital N. How we can write? Union of an, where n is the set of natural numbers. We got n cross n as union of an, where n belongs to the set of natural numbers. Also we can define the function. How we can define the function? Also we can define the function f from an to what? We are discussing the set of natural numbers, right? We can define this function f from an to n. How? It can be defined by what form? It can be defined by f of n comma I. How it can be defined? Function defined by f of n comma I. This will be equal to what? This will be again equal to I. What is I? It is going to be 1 1 and on to. Then only we can say, right, that is 1 1 and on to. Now what happens if it is 1 1 and on to? We have studied. If it is 1 1 and on to, then an is denumerable, right? If it is 1 1 and on to, an is denumerable. Therefore what we can say? An is denumerable. If an is denumerable, then what we say? So n cross n is also denumerable. So n cross n is denumerable. An is denumerable, n cross n is denumerable. That is, since y is, since n cross n is denumerable, an is denumerable. Connection of n cross n is denumerable collection of denumerable sets, right? Denumerable collection of denumerable sets. So if it is a collection of denumerable sets, then what it is going to happen? It is denumerable, and hence what? If it is denumerable, it is countable. Collection of denumerable sets, it is denumerable. Denumerable, and hence what? And hence countable. See, very simple thing they have given. We need to prove this equivalence relation, where this equivalence relation denotes the set of natural numbers is countable. So to denote that, what we are going to do? We are going to consider the sets. What kind of sets we have considered? We have considered A1, A2, A3 and so on up to AN. By this what we can come to know? We can come to know that this n cross n, it is the union of numbers, right? Union of an, where n belongs to this set of natural numbers. If so, what is going to happen? We can define a function f from an to n, and how it is defined? It is defined as f of n comma I will be equal to I, which is 1 1 and on to. If it is 1 1 and on to, it is going to be denumerable. Therefore an is denumerable. Why it is denumerable? Because n cross n, it is denumerable collection of denumerable sets. So if it is this collection of denumerable sets, then obviously it is going to be denumerable. And if it is denumerable, we say that it is countable. Hence we proved the theorem, or we proved the given statement. It is not theorem, actually we have proved the given statement. So now till this we have discussed about each question carrying 5 marks. We have discussed various problems carrying 5 marks. Now we are going to continue our discussion with question carrying 10 marks. See, what happens generally is 10 marks, in the sense we generally don't need to get a question of 10 marks only. It will be either in the form of AB or a question completely carrying 10 marks. So now we shall discuss questions carrying 10 marks. This is going to be the section 3 of the question paper, where each question carries 10 marks. Section 3, each question carries how many marks? Each question carries 10 marks. Among that, first one is prove that the set Q of rationals is countable. What we need to prove? Prove that the set Q of rationals is countable. It is just that we need to prove that these rational numbers or the set of rational numbers is countable. Again we are going to consider the sets. In what manner? Consider the sets A1. It is of what form? Rational numbers, in the sense that it should be in the form of P by Q, right? The same way A1 will be of the form 0, 1, 1, 1, minus 1, 1, again 2, 1, minus 2, 1, and so on. What is the denominator here? Here the common denominator is 1. Common denominator is 1. Okay. What about the next one? The same way we can consider set 2 like 0 by 2, 1 by 2, minus 1 by 2, again 2 by 2, minus 2 by 2, so on. Like that, here we got common denominator as what? Common denominator as 2. Just instead of writing denominator, I have just written, okay fine, common denominator is 1. Here the common denominator is 2. The same way how we can consider A3? It will be 0 by 3, 1 by 3, minus 1 by 3, 2 by 3, minus 2 by 3, and so on. Again here the common denominator is going to be 3. These are the sets of what? These are the sets of rational number. So how we are going to write now? Clearly this is the set of rational numbers. It is equal to what? Clearly the set of rational numbers Q, that is union of AN, right? How? Just go on considering like this. Many sets we are going to get AN in such a way that it is going to be 0 by n, 0 by n, 1 by n, minus 1 by n, 2 by n, minus 2 by n, so on. Here what is the common denominator? Here common denominator is n. So like this, if you go on considering up to n, we got that clearly that rational number Q, it is the union of AN where n belongs to what? Here we are considering the rational numbers, right? Where this n belongs to the set of natural numbers. If so, what is going to happen next? If it is so, we are going to consider a mapping F from n to AN. What we are going to do now? Consider a mapping F from n to AN defined by what? We are going to define two functions, that is, one is for odd numbers and the other is for even numbers. How? f of r will be in such a way that it is going to be r minus 1 by 2n if, what is the condition when it is going to be r minus 1 by 2n, if it is going to be odd, that is if r is odd, else it is going to be minus r divided by 2n if what, if r is even. What is going to happen? Minus r divided by 2n if r is even. We have just defined the function f from n to an in such a way that f of r is going to be what? R minus 1 by 2n when r is odd. Yes, we are going to define minus r by 2n when r is even. After defining the function, what we are going to consider? Now f is both 1 1 and onto. That is why what is going to happen? Therefore f is 1 1 and onto. How? Therefore an is equivalent to n. What we said? It is 1 1 and onto. Therefore an is equivalent to n. So if an is equivalent to n, it implies an is denumerable. Therefore an is denumerable. Now what happens if an is denumerable? It implies an is countable. If an is denumerable, what does it imply? If it is denumerable, it implies that an is countable. If it is countable, then we say that what is q? Q is union of an, right? Since q is union of an, where n belongs to this set of natural number, what we are going to say is the union of countable collection of what? Countable sets is union of countable collection of countable sets. What it is? It is the union of what kind of collection? The collection is countable, and what kind of sets? Even the sets are countable. That is why we say that Q is the union of countable collection of countable sets. So if it is the union of countable collection of countable sets, what we can say? We can clearly say that Q is countable. What we say? Therefore Q is countable, just the same as we had discussed for natural numbers, right? What we were supposed to prove? We were supposed to prove that the rational numbers is, that is the set of rational numbers is countable. For that, what we considered? We considered the sets. How we have considered the sets? Since they are the rational numbers, we have considered the sets in the form of p by q. That is, a1 will be equal to 0 by 1, 1 by 1, minus 1 by 1, 2 by 1 and minus 2 by 1. Here what has happened? Here the common denominator is 1. The same way we consider the second set where the common denominator is 2, and again a3 where the common denominator is 3. Continuing in this way, we consider the nth number of set an in such a way that not only an, we can still more continue it like this. So 0 by n where the common denominator is n. Then we can write, instead of n, we can here write ai in such a way that I belongs to this set of natural numbers. Means this set I had written n, means it still means that the numbers are going to continue even after n. That is why I wrote q is equals to union of ai where I belongs to this set of natural numbers. Once it is so, we are going to define a function f in such a way that it is from n to an in such a way that r minus 1 by 2n if r is odd and minus r by 2n if r is even. Then we say that this function f is both 1 1 and onto. It implies it is equivalent to n Therefore, an is denumerable. If so, we say that Q, where it is union of ai, where I belongs to the set of natural numbers, is again the countable collection of countable sets. Hence, we proved that Q is countable. Now, let us move to the next problem. Marks question. It will be in such a way that it need not be a complete one question only. They can ask it in two parts, that is A and B part. Okay. And next, what is the question given? They have given that every subset of a countable set is countable. See, we need to prove that every subset of a countable set is countable. We have already discussed this while explaining the class, or we have already discussed this in the previous session. How we are going to proof? Let A be any countable set. We are going to consider the proof as what? Let A be a countable set. So what happens if A is a countable set? Then what should happen? Then when we all know the definition of countable, right? When we can say that the set is countable, when it is either finite or denumerable. So if we have considered it as countable, then what should happen? Then either A should be finite or either A should be denumerable. Since we have said A is countable set, then A should be either finite or denumerable. Either finite or denumerable. If so, what is going to happen? Consider case 1 where A is finite. We have already studied that every subset of a finite set is finite. So what happens if A is finite? Every subset of A is also going to be finite, and hence A is going to be countable. See what we are going to write? Since every subset of a finite set is finite. We have already studied this as a theorem that every subset of a finite set is finite. Therefore, what we are writing, since every subset of a finite set is finite, what is going to happen? Every subset of A is finite. We say that every subset of A is finite, and hence what? And hence countable. We said that it is either finite or denumerable. We proved for finite. Now let us consider the case 2 of denumerable. That is case 2 when A is denumerable. Case 2 when A is denumerable. What happens if A is denumerable? Here A is going to be equivalent to what? N, the set of natural numbers. If it is denumerable, here A is equivalent to N what? It is the set of natural numbers. If it is denumerable, A is going to be equivalent to N, where N is the set of natural numbers. If so, what is going to happen? Let A is equals to A1, A2, A3 and so on. Let A is equals to A1, A2, A3 so on, and let B be subset of A. What we said? So A be a set of A1, A2, A3 so on, and let B be subset of A. If B is finite, then nothing to prove. B is going to be countable, and let B be subset of A. Now again we have two cases. What are those two cases? Let us consider subcase 1. If B is finite, then obviously what is going to happen? If B is finite, it is countable. We need to prove for subcase 2 where B is not finite. Subcase 2 where B is not finite. How we are going to prove it? When B is not finite. If B is infinite, let N1 be the least positive integer. How we are going to say? If B is not finite, that is, if B is infinite, let N1 be the least positive integer. How it should be? Such that least positive integer such that this set B, it is not equals to An1. It is infinite, then N1 be the least positive integer. In what way? In such a way that B is not equal to An1. But if B is not equal to An1, then we say let N2 be the least positive integer. Let N2 be the least positive integer, and in what form? And N2 is greater than N1. How it is? And N2 is greater than N1, and what is going to happen? An2, it should belong to B. In what way? An2, it should belong to B. If it belongs to B, again what is going to happen? Since again B is infinite, what is going to happen? This B, it will be not equal to both An1 and An2. This B, because it is infinite, so what is going to happen? It is not going to be equal to An1 and An2. Continuing like this so many times, means if you go on for An1, An2, An3, so on as many times as you go, what we get? Continuing like this. Continuing like this, we get B is equals to An1, An2, An3, so on. Why so on? It is infinite in such a way that N1 is less than N2, N1 is less than N2, N2 is less than N3, and it goes on. Now we are going to define a function f from N to B. If B is infinite, define a function f from N to B. How? By, it is in such a way that f of k is equals to a and k. What it is? For all k belongs to this set of natural numbers, then what is going to happen? Then f is 1, 1 and on 2. Then f is 1, 1 and onto. So what is going to happen if f is 1 1 and onto? Then it is denumerable. F is 1 1 and onto. Therefore, b is equivalent to n. B is equivalent to n in the sense it implies b is denumerable. If b is denumerable, what is going to imply? It is going to imply that b is countable. See, what we have done is to prove every subset of a countable set is countable. To prove that, we just consider the definition of countable. What it is? It should be either finite or denumerable. If A is finite, then we know that every subset of a finite set is finite, and that is why A is going to be what? Countable. So what we consider now? We consider it as denumerable. When A is denumerable, then what is going to happen? Then A will be equivalent to n, the set of natural numbers. If so, we are going to get a subset B. We need to consider the subset, right? We need to prove the subset is countable. That is why we consider B be the subset of A. If B is subset of A, we need to prove that either B is finite or infinite. If B is finite, nothing to prove, it is going to be countable. What if B is infinite? Since we consider B as infinite, we consider a least positive integer in such a way that since B is infinite, it will be not equal to an1. So if it is not equal to an1, consider one more least positive integer n2, which is greater than n1. So what is going to happen? an2 it belongs to B, but again as it is infinite, B will be not equal to an1 and an2. Continuing like this way, we are going to define the function f from n to b by what way? In such a way that f of k will be equal to what it is? F of k will be equal to a n k for all k belongs to this set of natural numbers. Then what is going to happen? F is both 1 1 and onto. If it is both 1 and onto, obviously what is going to happen? F is going to be equivalent to n. B, and that's why what happened? B is denumerable and hence B is countable. We proved that every subset of a countable set is countable. Now let us move to the next problem. See, we have already discussed the generalized De Morgan's law, right? What is that generalized De Morgan's law? That will be asked as a 10 marks question. Since I have already proved the entire theorem, you need to just glance it by yourself. I am going to tell what is the De Morgan's law. See, we had generalized De Morgan's law, right? What it is? This question will be asked for 10 marks. It is generalized, or third question, right? Generalized De Morgan's law. What it is? We had if a lambda, where lambda belongs to this indexed set, be an indexed family, be an indexed family of sets, then what is going to happen? Then we had two proofs. That is, what was the first one among that? The first one was union of a lambda, where lambda belongs to this indexed set. Its complement will be equal to intersection of a lambda complement, where this lambda belongs to the indexed set. Again, one more proof was of it was intersection of a lambda, where lambda belongs to this index set. Its complement will be equal to what? It will be equal to union of a lambda complement, where lambda belongs to this indexed set. This is the generalized De Morgan's law, which will be asked for 10 marks. We have already proved this in our regular classes. Now let us so you better glance it yourself. We will focus on another problem carrying 10 marks. What they have given? One more question. They have given that if f be a function from x to y is a function then prove that. What we need to prove? We need to prove f of a union b. This is equals to what? This is equals to f of a union f of b, where we have a comma b as subset of x. And then what about the second one we have? We have f inverse of a intersection b. This is equals to what? F inverse of a intersection f inverse of b, where a comma b, they are the subset of y. We need to prove these two things. Let us consider one by one. Proof for the first one. How we are going to begin? Let y be any element. Let y be any element. Any element in what form? It should be any element of a union b. Of a union b. If y be any element of a union b, in the sense how we are going to write it? Then y belongs to a union b. Then how we are going to further simplify it? We are going to say that y belongs to a union b, in the sense what we are going to write it? Consider y is equals to f of x. Y is equals to f of x for some x belongs to a union b. We have considered y is equals to f of x for some x belongs to a union b. So now if x belongs to a union b, what is going to happen? This implies y, it is going to be equal to f of x either for what? For some x belongs to a or x belongs to b. See, since it belongs to a union, then it should either belong to a or it should either belong to b. Then this implies what? Y is equal to f of x for some x belongs to a or x belongs to b. In the sense, what is going to happen? Y will be equal to f of x for some x belongs to f of a, or we can say f of x belongs to f of a, or f of x belongs to f of b. When y is equals to f of x, when it belongs to some f of x belongs to f of a, or for some f of x belongs to f of b. If so, what is going to happen? We can say that y is equals to f of x, or this implies y belongs to f of x, or y belongs to f of a, or y belongs to f of b. If so, what we are going to write? We are going to write it as y belongs to f of a union f of b. See, it either belongs to f of a or f of b. In a sense, we can write y belongs to f of a union f of b. Therefore, what happened now? Therefore, f of a union b, it became the subset of f of a union f of b. Consider this as equation 1. What we said? We considered y belongs to A union B. Now what we are going to consider? See, A union B. See, now we know obviously A is going to be the subset of A union B, and also B is going to be the subset of A union B. If so, what is going to happen? F of A is going to be the subset of F of A union B, and what is going to happen? And F of B is going to be the subset of F of A union B. So what is going to happen? F of A, this implies what? F of A union F of B. This is going to be the subset of F of A union B. Consider this as equation 2. Now combining equation 1 and equation 2. Combining equation 1 and 2. What we had equation 1? We had equation 1 as F of A union B. It is the subset of F of A union F of B. And we had equation 2 as F of A union F of B. That is going to be the subset of F of A union B. And hence what is going to happen? F of A union B. This will be equal to F of A union F of B, where A comma B, what they are? They are subset of X. See, we were supposed to prove that F of A union B is equals to F of A union F of B. To prove that, from where we started that by B, any element of A union B, any element of A union B in the sense what? Y belongs to A union B. If so, what we wrote? F of X is Y is equals to F of X for some X belongs to A union B. A union B in the sense either X belongs to A or X belongs to B. That's why what we wrote for some F of X belongs to F of A or F of X belongs to F of B. Instead of writing or, we wrote F of Y belongs to F of A or Y belongs to F of B. Nothing but we wrote as Y belongs to F of A union F of B. Therefore, what happened? F of A union B, that is the subset of F of A union F of B, which implies A is subset of A union B and B is subset of A union B. That is why we prove that F of A union F of B, that is the subset of F of A union B. Combining equation 1 and 2, we prove that F of A union B, that is equals to F of A union F of B. We just proved the first part. Now let us prove the second part of the question. So what is the second part of the question given? F inverse of A intersection B, that is equals to F inverse of A intersection F inverse of B, where A comma B is a subset of Y. Now let us consider as, let X be any element of A intersection B. Let X be any element of, let X be any element of F inverse of A intersection B. Then what is going to happen? Then X belongs to F inverse of A intersection B. Then what we are going to write? We can write as X belongs to F inverse of A intersection B. If it belongs to F inverse of A intersection B, we can just write as F of X belongs to A intersection B. It implies F of X belongs to A and F of X belongs to B. This implies F of X belongs to A and F of X belongs to B. If so, how we are going to write? We can write X belongs to F inverse of A and X belongs to F inverse of B. Then how we can write? We can write it as X belongs to F inverse of A intersection F inverse of A intersection F inverse of B. F inverse of B. See. And x belongs to F inverse of B in the sense what we wrote on this intersection. X belongs to F inverse of A intersection F inverse of B. Therefore, what we got? Therefore, F inverse of A intersection B, that is going to be the subset of F inverse of A intersection F inverse of B. Consider this as equation 2. Now again what we are going to do? X be any element. Again the first part. Now again X be any element of F inverse of A intersection F inverse of B. That is how we are going to write. This implies X belongs to F inverse of A and X belongs to F inverse of B. If it is so, how we are going to write? This implies F of X belongs to A. And what we write? F of X belongs to B. Right? This is how we are going to write. F of X belongs to A and F of X belongs to B. Then what is going to happen? This implies F of X belongs to A intersection B. This implies what? This implies X belongs to F inverse of A intersection B. Hence what we got? Therefore, F inverse of A intersection F inverse of B, that is going to be the subset of F inverse of A intersection B. Consider this as equation 2. Again on combining equation 1 and equation 2. Combining equation 1 and 2, what we are going to get? We are going to get as F inverse of A intersection B is equals to F inverse of A intersection F inverse of B, where A comma B, that is going to be the subset of Y. Hence what we proved? We proved that F inverse of A intersection B, that is equals to F inverse of A intersection F inverse of B. So students, these were the questions each carrying 10 marks. So let us just glance what all we have discussed in this entire chapter of set theory. See, firstly we have studied what are sets, how we are going, what are going to be the operation of sets, that is union of sets, intersection of sets, difference of sets and complement of sets. And later we studied laws of algebra, and then we studied about the Cartesian product of sets and Cartesian product of two sets and as well as Cartesian product of three sets. Later we have studied the relations. What is the symmetric relation, reflexive relation, transitive relation, when we are going to say the relation as an equivalence relation, that all we have studied. Later we studied about arbitrary union and arbitrary intersection of sets. Soon after that we studied generalized De Morgan's law. That generalized De Morgan's law carries, if there are both the proofs, it carries 10 marks. Then we studied about images and inverse images of the function. We studied types of functions, that is 1, 1, onto and bijective functions. After that we studied set functions, then composite of functions, properties of composite of functions we studied, and then what are equivalent sets, theorem on these equivalent sets, countable sets, denumerable, when we say it is a countable, uncountable, denumerable, and so many theorems related to this countability of set. And later we have also solved the question paper. So keep studying,